Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the AGM of the Waratah Wynyard Council. Time being 5:38. 5:33, sorry. We have the agenda with us, and I'd like to advise that the digital recording of our meeting and to ensure a true and accurate account of the debate and discussion of the meetings is available. This recording is authorised by the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015. Present has been listed. Apologies is Councillor Edwards. She may be here late. She's had an emergency. And my next matter would be item 3 on the agenda, acknowledgement of country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respect to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. To begin with, I've mentioned good evening to all councillors and staff and members of the gallery which don't exist at this stage. It is my pleasure to welcome you here to the 2020 AGM for the Waratah Wynyard Council. I'd like to thank council staff for their continued dedication and commitment. It has been a difficult year with the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has presented. Our elected members and staff rose to the occasion, and I am proud of the way in which Council has responded in supporting the community during that period. Whilst the year has presented many challenges, considerable progress has been made to progressing many of the community's plans and strategies. Council's corporate strategic plan is the blueprint for delivering services. The annual report provides a snapshot of the activities undertaken to progress the community's plans and strategies. Some of the highlights from the year include the adoption of the Integrated Council Environmental Plan, ICEP, the adoption of the Boat Harbour Master Plan, the development of the Cam River Reserve Master Plan, the completion of the new boardwalk and seawall at the Wynyard waterfront. It's an attraction on its own. Many people use it, and the new change rooms at the Wynyard Recreation Ground to cater for level playing fields, which is a huge addition to our municipality. An upgrade to the Wynyard BMX track, which the BMX club are one of the strongest clubs around, and they're having activities there which are putting us on the map. It's a national class standard track. The completion of the Camp Creek remediation and pedestrian bridge, the completion of the rural road safety audit, the introduction of community conversations, and the roll out of Council's new website. Council has had a continued focus on strong community engagement, and the community continues to use its voice to shape its future alongside a strong council that is willing to listen. The Wonders of Wynyard was awarded a silver medal at the Qantas Australian Tourism Awards for the recognition of its innovation and contribution to the local economy and a quality visitor experience. This national recognition is testament to the role that our centre plays in the region. Council was also recognised for its efforts in the community engagement, winning the Community Service Delivery Award in an annual Local Government Professionals Award. I thank councils for their leadership, vision and commitment to Waratah Wynyard. Councillor Hallie House resigned from her position in June 2020, and we thank her for her contribution. With that being said, it is with much pleasure that I hand the next part of the proceedings to our General Manager. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shane Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council will note, obviously, the annual report very shortly, but we will make just a couple of comments prior to that happening. So just might ask Mr. Searle to provide a quick snapshot of the financial outcomes of Council before we get to that item on the agenda.
Thank you, Shane, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Despite difficult operating conditions throughout 2019-20, Council has reported a solid financial performance for the year ended 30 June 2020. The financial impact of the pandemic on Council's operating result for the year was around $550,000. This included a reduction in Taswater dividends, impact on child care operations, a reduction in tourism and sporting facility user charges, and additional leave expense incurred. Fortunately, Council was well placed to respond to the pandemic, and despite challenging operating conditions, Council recorded a small underlying deficit of $26,000. This is an unfavourable variance to budget of just $112,000. Council's ongoing underlying operating position remains sustainable, and the impacts of the pandemic are not expected to go beyond the pandemic duration. So Council continues to have capacity to comfortably meet its financial obligations as they fall due. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Searle.
Thank you. So I just want to again reiterate that Council should be pleased with the financial performance that has eventuated in the past year, despite those challenging circumstances that we mentioned. We are, as a council, I guess, in what I'd call a delivery phase. So we have obviously a number of adopted strategies and plans, and now we're very much onto the doing. And the capital program of the last 12 months, and certainly the $17 million proposed for this financial year, I guess, proves that point, that we're onto the doing phase of much work that's gone into this, the planning for that over the past number of years. And we also recognise that with that doing comes some operational challenges that we'll need to be prepared for in future years, and that's why we spend time as a council working on our financial management strategy and taking into account some of the impacts of our capital spend during the years. I only wanted to, I guess, really make one point and just talk to COVID a little more and the impacts of that. And certainly, as an organisation, we need to make sure that the safety of our employees is paramount. And often, when the pandemic first came, it was very difficult as an organisation to provide certainty, to provide some answers to our staff when there was lots of unknowns at the time. And we had to enact our business continuity plan. We had to make decisions on the run, as did many other councils and many other organisations. But certainly through that period, through March and April, it was a particularly challenging period for us. But certainly, and it was mentioned earlier, that staff, I believe, and our elected members did rise to that occasion and have worked through very well what has been presented to us in the last 6 months. We honoured all of our agreement conditions from a staffing perspective. That certainly hasn't been the case with all councils throughout the state, and we honoured all of our conditions, all of our pay rises that we needed to do. We in fact went above and beyond and offered pandemic leave to our staff, and 37 staff took up some or all of that pandemic leave, which showed that 37 staff at any given time had undertaken some testing or quarantining or isolation that we supported. But I particularly want to mention the childcare staff and the staff from areas such as the Waratah Wynyard that certainly were impacted through that pandemic period and showed terrific resilience, adaptability and understanding as we worked through. And it's really pleasing to say that at the end of this particular period of the pandemic, we've maintained and kept all of those staff engaged, and not one has left, which I think is fantastic. And their willingness to work with us, reduce their hours and work together and cooperate was fantastic. From a community perspective, obviously our challenges relating to the pandemic are ongoing. We know that we've at least got somewhere near 40 COVID plans that we're implementing at the moment across our municipality. And we'll see, obviously, a greater financial impact from that particular pandemic this financial year as to what we did last year, and we're aware of that. So I guess in summary, the financial year that's presented through this annual report was, two distinct parts. There was a pre-COVID and then the during COVID part of the year. But now our focus is certainly charging ahead with the economic recovery and our ambitious program for the coming year. With that, I guess I just wanted to turn your attention to the screen just to remind everyone of the obligations for the AGM and the statutory requirements that come with that. So we are required to hold an annual general meeting by the 15th of December every year. So obviously we've met that obligation. And even in the current environment, there is an Emergency Act which says we have been given longer than that period to undertake the AGM. But clearly from our point of view, we're able to get support from the auditors and have had no need to delay to usually what would normally hold this time of year anyway. we have a requirement to advertise the AGM as per the requirement on the screen, and you'll see that we have advertised and met that requirement on the 17th of October and the 26th of October. The point there around the quorum isn't relevant because we have enough attendees here tonight. And then finally, the final points here relate to if we receive any notices of motion or motions from the floor in relation to the AGM, which we won't have any to the best of my knowledge. And finally, the requirement there is that we must keep minutes of the annual general meeting. So they are our obligations for tonight, and I think it's always important to refresh ourselves of those before we get into the meeting proper. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. GM. We'll now continue, councillors and staff, with the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Daniam. Councillor Courtney. The minutes of the annual general meeting of the Waratah Wynyard Council held at the Council Chamber, Sauna Street on Monday the 28th of October 2019 and previously circulated be confirmed as a true record.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, that was the motion. Thank you. Any comment, any speakers before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 6, the annual report. Public submissions. There are no submissions received at the time of the agenda compilation, 4:50 p.m. Friday the 30th of October 2020. Annual report, the recommendation there that Council note the 2019-20 Waratah Wynyard Council annual report. Would someone like to move that, please?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Daniam, moved. Councillor Bramish, seconded. Any speakers? Would you like to open the debate, Deputy Mayor Daniam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my perspective, there is no debate, but I do congratulate the General Manager and all the staff in the amount of work that they have done this year, particularly under those difficult circumstances, and Mrs. Searle for her very careful monitoring of our financial situation. It is important that we understand where we're at any given time. But it is a great report, and I'm very proud as a Waratah Wynyard councillor that we have done so much and we will continue to do so.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Daniam. Any further speakers? If not, Councillor Fairbrother.
Thanks, Mayor Walsh. How long have we got? 2 minutes. Oh, come on. Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor indicated there shouldn't be any debate. I think as councillors, tonight should be the night that we hold the floor, because to me the annual report, even though I'm sure no one in the wider community reads it, it is something that encapsulates council's year. One of the important things to me that I took out of the documents on page 37, and it says one of the desired outcomes that we strive for, that Waratah Wynyard Council is a modern community moving forward but not forgetting where it started. And for me, that's probably out of the document one of the most important things, because we start our meetings now by recognising the traditional owners of the land, which to me is a good thing. Up on our wall up there, we have many of the people that have preceded us and the people that have preceded our staff. And if you go back through and look at Wynyard's history, a lot of those people that you see up there were once part of the United Milk Tasmania, and the administrative arm of this council in a lot of ways provided the administration for one of the early industries in this area, which was the butter factory. And I guess the dairying industry, the land on which is now farmed, provided much about Wynyard back then, as what it does now. And if you go back even further, when the VDL first settled northwest, Wynyard, or Table Cape as it was known then, was one of the integral parts of the VDL company, and was could have potentially been the industrial hub of the northwest coast. And it's probably that by chance fell to Burnie. However, as a municipality, we offer so much more, so much in fact that I think Burnie wants to have a marriage of convenience, they call it, because we are, I believe, as a councillor, doing so much more, and I think as a council we're punching well above our weight in the area. And I can understand them wanting to join with us, because I think that we are excelling in what we do, and that's covered off in the annual report that we have before us. Councillors, if I could turn your attention back to 2017, at the time we were having some renovations done on this council chambers, and we had a meeting up at the high school. And if you go back and have a look at the 2017 annual report, and those councillors that were about will remember that there was a fresh-faced younger person up at the high school observing the annual meeting, and at the time we had the annual report, which focused on, the front cover was a picture of Boat Harbour. And I can clearly recall saying, how apt is that? It's, to me, back then, it was the dawn of a new beginning, because Boat Harbour had some problems. Boat Harbour was my home, and we essentially as council were rectifying the problems, and then we was able to move forward. I use that metaphorically to sort of say, hey, this is where we're at with the council. The younger person that I referred to that was in the gallery, wasn't sitting around the table, was the current general manager. He was eyeing us off as if to say, oh, I just want to see what I'm getting myself in for before I take the reins of this council. And I think much of what our annual report is a reflection on him and his time at council. He has acknowledged that we're in a delivery phase at the moment. Yes, we are. But any general manager is only as good as the staff he has around him. And I don't want to pander to the staff or the general manager, but I think when you read through our annual report, to me what's in it is fairly unassuming. I think that a lot of credit that perhaps we as council need to be given to our staff. And Mayor, I recognise you've recognised the staff, and the General Manager's recognised the people that he has around him in his submission. But Council, if I could bring to your attention some words which appear in some council documents, but it's not in our annual report. It says, Council is currently in a strong financial position with strong liquidity and cash flow, low debt levels, assets that are in a good condition, and ability to satisfactorily fund its asset renewal requirements. Council's operating position has also improved in recent years and is sustainable, with its recurrent expenses able to be fully met by its recurrent revenue streams. And if you want to know where that comes from, we've got a job position advertised within this council for an accountant. And that is the spiel that we use to try and attract somebody here at this council to fill a very important job. And I think that that is a true reflection of where we are at council at the moment. And from an elected member position, I don't think that there's any better time to be an elected member of any council than being a member of, or a councillor at this council, because I think that we are, as I said, punching above our weight as a council, and so many good things are happening around the place. As an aside, I had a customer come and stay at our holiday premises at Boat Harbour the other day, and they come to pay their money, and I said to him, oh, what was the highlight of your holiday? He said, oh, you wouldn't believe it, but we went and done a guided tour through the silica plant. the other day, he said, "Have you ever done it?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And I said, "It's only in my backyard." And he went on and started to tell me about how there's only 3 silica providers in the world, and Waratah Wynyard Council has the silica plant that produces the highest quality material that goes into LEDs and TV screens in the world. And I thought, yep, and it's just in our backyard and we don't even know that it's there. And it's, to me, so much like so much good stuff that we have, that we do as council. A lot of people don't know that it's even there or we even have it. And you could say the same about the lobster farm at Flowerdale, and you could go on and on and on about so much good stuff happens around this community. And I made a smart-assery joke a while ago about the contented community outside. Well, we don't have the discontented community in here rattling our cage about they're not happy about this and they're not happy about that. They, to me, are a contented community because I believe we are meeting most of their needs. Sure enough, people want to bag us out for the naming of Forces Road and the like, but as a council, I think we need to do what we've done, and that is acknowledge the people of the past, and we've got a responsibility to do the right thing for the people of the future. And if people are inconvenienced along the way, well, I'm sorry about that, but I think that as a council we have a greater duty and a greater obligation for those people that have passed us, who have preceded us, and those people that are going to enjoy some of the good things that we have done, such as the East Wynyard foreshore, the wharf, the boardwalk, and you can go on and on. You can read all about it in this year's annual report. So, councillors, for me, the annual report's not an annual report. What it is a summary of some of the good things that we've been doing, and the unspoken things in that report perhaps is the contribution that our staff make, that we make as a council in working together as a team. And I say that I fully endorse the report, but do say that there's a lot of stuff that we do that goes on behind the scenes that perhaps isn't acknowledged. And I guess my time in speaking to the annual report is to acknowledge those things that are unseen and unspoken of, but I appreciate they're there and appreciate that they have an influence on the outcome of this annual report. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers? If not, the motion was moved by Deputy Mayor Danium, seconded by Councillor Bramish, and I'll put that motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, public statements, questions, comments, motions. Questions and statements or motions will be heard at this stage of the meeting, do we have any questions from our councillors? If not, we'll move to item 9 on the agenda, which is the closure of the annual general meeting at 5:55. I thank you for your attendance and your efforts and contributions throughout the year. Thank you.